Hello and happy Halloween to everyone out there watching safely from your homes. My name is Derek Anderson from dailydead.com and the Corpse Club podcast, and I'm honored to be here today with Mia Serafino, Ronen Rubinstein, and Crispin Glover. Thank you so much for joining me today. These are the stars of the new movie Smiley Face Killers, which just had its world premiere at Popcorn Frights Wicked Weekend. Thank you so much for joining me today, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And I always love hearing how the cast for a movie comes together and what draws you to a project. So I'd just love to hear from each of you what attracted you to these roles, and maybe starting with you, Crispin, because this movie is also a reunion of sorts for you because you're reteaming with the director Tim Hunter, who you worked with previously on River's Edge.
Right.
And so did he have you in mind for this role? Did he approach you?
Yes. Yeah, I was offered the part. I looked at it quickly. I was in the middle of a production of my own film I've been working on for many years and still here working on post-production for it right now. But I was shooting something, about to shoot something. I had turned it down because when I read it, I felt that the character, it really didn't require an actor. I felt it required an interesting looking person. So I didn't think there was any purpose for me to do it. But Tim kept asking essentially, and I got on the phone with him, and he really did convince me to do it. But part of what I thought was, if there's going to be a makeup, I would want it to be not the kind of application of a standard, what has come to look like a mask, where everybody's wearing a mask, and it's not really utilizing the features of the person. And I talked to him about, Lon Chaney's old techniques, which they're not comfortable. It's part of why they don't do them anymore. But it does have an effective quality because it's physically utilizing the face. And he was into that, and it ended up working out. I just trusted him with it. I didn't really concentrate on anything other than I looked at what the character was supposed to do. I knew that Bret Easton Ellis is a well-respected writer, and I trusted Tim. I've been friendly with Tim over the years as well. So that really is exactly how it came into being. That's what the main thing. I just wanted to make sure that the makeup worked out all right. And I from the photos of it, it looks good.
Yeah, I would say it definitely did the job. Mia, what about you? How did you get involved with this film?
I just got the audition, and but it was weird because a couple months before that, I randomly just was reading a ton of Bret Easton Ellis, was going through all of his books and just devouring them. And this audition came up, and I was so weirdly nervous for it because we're used to auditioning for directors we respect and stuff, but I love to read, and the fact that he's such a brilliant novelist, I was very nervous for the audition. But I loved the character. It wasn't just a standard girlfriend character. I feel like she had depth in the scenes with Jake, and I really liked it. It wasn't just a superficial girlfriend role.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of layers going on in your role in particular. And that brings us to Ronen as Jake. What appealed to you about this part, and how did you get the lead role in the film?
Everything appealed to me with this part. It was, first and foremost, Bret Easton Ellis. And then obviously Tim Hunter. I'm a huge fan of River's Edge. And then the character itself, I knew that it would be the most difficult thing that I would take on in my career so far, both physically and mentally, as you could probably see in the movie. All the characters overall, it just felt like there was was very authentic, and it felt like all the characters were written really real. And I think you could feel that in the movie with the chemistry, between whether it's Garrett or Mia or myself. I really enjoy the groups of people that he wrote, whether it's, the hooded figures and their whole thing going on, or the friend group, or Jake and Mia. So that was, the script read so well and so fast, and extremely intense, obviously. And yeah, it was just an audition. I auditioned it for in Los Angeles, and then I was doing a production in New York at the time. And I remember we got the call to do a callback while I was shooting, and I was like, oh shit, I can't make it. Is there any way we could do it over tape, some like this actually? And I remember production was sweet enough, and they like blocked out a room for me, and they're like, all right, best of luck, don't worry about this, just focus on this. And then I did a video callback with Tim and Brett and our producer Braxton Pope. And then I remember I'm on set in New York, and I get the call from my manager, and they're like, you got the part. And I just remember the whole production like cheering and applauding, and it was a really special moment to share it with them. And then literally the next week we landed in Vegas, and then we started shooting this crazy movie.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, it's awesome when we're working on something and then to go straight to something else and just fully immerse yourself in another world. It was
definitely a different world for sure.
That's pretty intense. Crispin, you mentioned this earlier, but you're completely unrecognizable in this movie with the makeup effects, these amazing effects that I read that you came up with them with Vincent Guastini and his team and the really talented makeup effects artists. And it was amazing. Look at the behind the scenes photos. You had like hooks in your face and your eye taped back. Can you just talk about working with that team to come up with your look and what specifically you wanted to bring to that character with the visuals?
Well, I went over and I met with Vincent at his place in the Valley, and we had a long discussion actually on the telephone before I went to meet with him. And he knew exactly what I was talking about as soon as I said what I wanted to do. I just feel like the prosthetics these days, even if they're good, and to this day, there is great prosthetic work going on, and that whole community of special effects artistry is a real art. But one of the major icons of this, of course, is Lon Chaney. And not only was he, a great performer, a great actor, but he did the makeup himself. And that the famous Phantom of the Opera makeup, that's his own work, and he utilized hooks which pulled parts of his face in different directions. It's actually not 100% clear what he did, but you can see what he looked like at the time and what he looks like in the film, and it's incredibly transformative and extremely effective. So, I mean, we didn't want to copy that makeup because that makes makeup's an iconic makeup. But I asked him what things we could do, what choices we could have, and we came on two things that pulled the face down. One hook that's in my mouth that pulls one side down, and then something under my eye that pulls one side down, and that's hidden under latex. And then there were straps that went through a special collar, and I had to kind of pull them down to keep the effect. it's kind of a different thought process. But I recently was looking at some stuff of Lon Chaney, and it really was tremendous what he was doing. He would bind his legs in certain ways that it looked like he was legless or armless, or he did a myriad of things, and it's really incredible. did. So, you know, that was definitely an influence. And there wasn't, you know, we came up with it fairly quickly. We knew which things needed to be done. And then there was some discussion about whether there would be hair or not. I did not want to shave my head because, as it turned out, I did end up acting in something else a couple months later, and I needed some hair. I've done that before where I shaved my head for something, and then you get cast in something and you have like a crew cut. I couldn't do that. So then I was up for doing the character with hair, but I think we were supposed to have a day of testing, which you normally have with prosthetics. I went in and I met with Vincent, and then I only found out when I got to Las Vegas that actually on the day that we were shooting, I can't remember which, that we were shooting that day. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to have a test day. And then we ended up doing the prosthetic on the first day of shooting. So it took some time. And then Tim Hunter wanted me to have a bald head. So that also required a bald cap, which means there's more stuff. But anyhow, it worked out, and it's a good look. So
yeah, I think it'd be good. I mean, with Halloween coming up, that'd be a fun one to replicate. How long was the makeup effects process to fully transform yourself?
It's unknown because there were multiple days. Normally, when you do a prosthetic work, the first time you do it, it takes a certain amount of time. That's why you have a test day. And the next day you do it, it's already shaved off in, you know, a significant amount of time. But the very first time you do it, it's going to take a lot of time. Plus, there are things that can go wrong with this. It's not the same kind of thing. As part of the reason they do the silicone mask-like or latex mask-like things is the applications are fixed. And there's nothing that can really go wrong. But once you're like pulling stuff, things can happen. So, and those things do and did happen, but yeah, it takes some doing.
Well, it makes it seem that much more real. And I can only imagine, Mia and Ronen, for you, what was it like acting opposite Crispin Glover in these prosthetics and just his entire group, but particularly Crispin, because it's such a transformation. What was that like to be on that set and to kind of react to that? Because I'd imagine it'd make it a little bit easier to bring that fear to life as an actor when you're acting opposite those kinds of prosthetics.
I honestly didn't really see it until I saw the movie, and it's I think Crispin is hiding behind a counter when I'm walking upstairs, and that was the extent of my my scenes with him, unfortunately. But it was a nice surprise when I got to see it. Terrifying.
Yeah, I think the only time I was actually on screen with Crispin was when I'm tied up in the van and he's driving and then he's peeking behind the curtain. So we never actually, had any interaction. I did see him peeking, and that scared the shit out of me. I mean, it's incredible. Obviously, you could see. There's no faking that. It's true fear. I think all of the hooded figures, whether it was the performances and the costume and the prosthetics, all that combined, it made the whole situation that much more real and truly scary. So I'm very grateful for that, because that could have been really difficult to try to fake. And that's it. And then sometimes, I see Crispin walking on set. We'd like go to Crafty, and I'm like, oh hey, that's about as far as it went.
Yeah, I love that you meant that scene with the eye. Just the eye showing is really, it feels
so
very
good. That shot is crazy.
Yeah, it feels old school. It feels like it harkens back to the Phantom of the Opera days and that style of horror. There's something very gothic about it, even though we're in this modern day kind of a slasher story. It's a great mix. And Ronen, I think it's safe to say your character, Jake, really goes through the ringer in this movie. I mean, he's running for his life, he's biking for his life, and I mean, it's such a physical role, and then that's on top of all this mental anguish that your character's going through as well. So it almost feels like he's fighting a battle internally as much as he is externally. But for you as an actor, what was that like? Because it almost feels like you don't get a chance to breathe even, because he's constantly in danger. And I can imagine that would be quite an undertaking to take on that role.
Yeah, I have not done anything like that since, I don't know if I will, to be completely honest. It was insane. Mentally for sure, but physically, I got my ass kicked. And it was, I mean, we were literally in Nevada, so it was like 100-something degrees every single day, working every single day, crazy hours, and just putting your body through all of that. It catches up. I remember on the weekends, I couldn't move. And on the weekends, I dedicated to just, try to recover as much as possible, and then going back to work the next week. But, it was a challenge that I always hope for as an actor. I grew up playing sports. So, I like the physical aspect of it, but I did not know that it was going to be like this. It was crazy. But again, also I asked to do as much of the stuff as possible. I wanted to take on that challenge, and yeah, I may have hurt myself a couple of times, but it was totally fine. And, one of the biggest things I remember is jumping out of the van. They're like, all right, we're going to get a stunt person. And the van's going to stop, and then the stunt person's going to jump out onto a pad, and then we'll switch you and you'll pop up and you'll start running. And I was like, hell no, I want to jump out of the car. It's like, I felt like baby Tom Cruise for a second. So I jumped out, did that whole thing. And I just remember like looking back on it, I'm like, I'm sprinting through gravel in the middle of Nevada, pretty much butt naked, for this movie. And now looking back on it, it was so awesome and crazy, but in the process of it, it was a lot. It was yeah, it's crazy, man. And then of course mentally, having that in the back of my mind every single day of what Jake's going through internally, and during that process, no one is really is believing him. So I found that to be a really difficult battle of, his closest people in the world aren't believing him. And then that sort of makes him think that maybe he's losing his mind, when in reality, he's not. He's just being hunted down by these people. So there was so much to balance, mentally and physically. I was very relieved to be done shooting when we were done shooting. That's for sure.
I can imagine. Yeah, that is very taxing but rewarding, and I think you really pulled it off. And I love the dynamic that you and Mia have, because Mia, like you mentioned, your character, she's like the strength of the movie. She grounds Jake, and he leans on her in moments of distress. How important was that for you to kind of bring out the strength of that character and really be like the pillar of strength in the movie? Because I think it is really awesome to see Karen be that character and do all those things and kind of be the moral compass and the strength for Jake in the movie.
Yeah, I think also it's even kind of the audience role, because he's coming to her throughout the movie. The scenes are kind of peppered, like beginning, middle, end, and we're seeing him. And I love that first scene of ours, because you're kind of getting just a taste of the history. His mom called, kind of why no one believes him, why he's sort of the boy who cried wolf. Like, we've been through all this before. And I love how Brett wrote this. It's all like kind of a fever dream. You're just dropped into this place with these people, and you're just kind of in the middle of the story, but you get little hints about, remember when you wrote that email, and it just, her information she's giving is kind of making us realize why no one's believing him,
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, I mean, I've had, you know, family members and people in my life with issues, addiction kind of thing. So I did relate to those scenes of when you're talking to someone, you know, you have to be very careful. I remember that specifically. I was thinking about those scenes. You can't just lash out because he's someone who had or has like a mental illness and is taking medication. So you can't kind of deal with that like how you would deal with anyone. And it's her boyfriend and she loves him and she doesn't want to ruin anything. So she's kind of not handling him with kid gloves, but just making sure she saves the relationship, isn't offending him, hearing him. So that's why, I mean, I felt like there was so much going on in those scenes. Like they went from just them being in love to her seeing this side of him, her being worried for him, for herself, kind of too. At the party, he's, you know, making a fool of himself, she thinks, and confronting Rob. And I don't know, I thought there was just a lot of complicated stuff going on with them, which I really liked.
Yeah, the whole dynamic feels really lived in. The characters feel lived in, including your character, Crispin, who I don't believe says one word in the movie, but still emotes so much, like more than words even could. And I'm curious if, because it feels kind of like a Lon Chaney or Boris Karloff. It has that, there's so much in the movements of the character. What did you want to bring out with the movements of your character, the personality, and did you come up with like a backstory for your character at all? Because it feels like there's so much history there too.
I kind of joked with Tim Hunter that it was a sequel to River's Edge, and that Layton went to jail and got into drugs, had a burn problem. But I didn't really think that. I mean, really, I just was doing what Tim told me needed to be accomplished for the scene. I mean, I knew what basic things, but I really was concentrating on getting the application to work properly and accomplish what was ever necessary. You know, it was uncomfortable, so I also wanted things to just go as quickly and smoothly as possible and get it done, because there were things that could go wrong at any minute. So the faster he could get it done was best. So I just, you know, whatever Tim wanted, that's what I wanted.
Excellent. Yeah, it feels really, I can imagine, yeah, you're not wanting to stay in that makeup longer than you have to in that Nevada heat.
The application isn't so much, but I had to pull the thing down. And after a while, that does start to hurt. That's why they don't use that stuff anymore. I think it's worth it. I mean, I'm glad I did it. But I mean, when I particularly look at Lon Chaney, I mean, the stuff that Boris Karloff, the guy that did the makeup for Boris Karloff was great as well. And Boris Karloff's another great actor. But and it utilized aspects of his face, the famous, you know, Frankenstein monster makeup, but it wasn't distorting his own face, from what I can tell, in the way that some of Lon Chaney's makeup was doing. So I think even by the sound era, the makeup stopped having these uncomfortable aspects. But like I said, I mean, I bought it unto myself. I knew in advance it was uncomfortable, and yes, it is uncomfortable, but it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely. It makes it that much more real. And I think that's what you miss with CG sometimes, is the realness of it. So I really appreciate, I know a lot of horror fans are going to appreciate what you went through in this role and putting the pain and the time in for that to bring that character to life.
Yeah.
And I feel now water and religion, as the movie goes on, we kind of find out kind of Bret Easton Ellis's version of what's going on with these killers. And it's what I find fascinating is that water and religion and kind of this whole cult ritual is really driving this story. Was that something that any of you were like, did you research that at all or have to familiarize yourself with that? I mean, particularly you, Crispin, because your character is driven by these almost like a pagan or just a very historic ritual, it seems like.
I talked to Tim about it, and I got what he said to me about it, and then just kind of went with that. I was shooting something the day before shooting this, my own film, which all of my concentration was on that. So I needed to make sure the makeup looked good. And then I just said, whatever you need me to do, tell me. And that really was the extent of it. But again, I trusted him for real. And I said, you like the script? When I talked to him, do you feel that it can be good? And he said, yes. I said, fine. And then I just said, you tell me what you need me to do and I'll do it. And that's how it worked.
Excellent. Yeah, it worked out really well. I think Mia and Ronen, what was it like for you to, I guess, when you first read the script and you saw how Jake's story ends, and this is kind of based on obviously inspired by these tragic murders that have happened in real life. So it might not necessarily be a surprise, but it's such a heartbreaking end to the story because you're still rooting for Jake and you really want him to come out of this and you really feel for him and you want him and Mia to go off into the sunset, but kind of, true to it doesn't pull any punches in that finale. What was that like for you to kind of go on that journey and really tell the story to the end, even as hard as it might have been?
From the beginning, just knowing that it was based on true events, and whether the myth is real or not, the fact that there were these young men over a span of 20 something years that were brutally murdered, and all murders somewhat in the same circumstances. For me, that sort of put everything into the utmost urgency when it came to playing this character, because I sort of felt like now I have to, in a way, represent these young men in a way, which is a gigantic responsibility. And, it's not anything that, it's not like, it's gonna bring these young men back. But I think in a way it was just telling their story, and the importance of, showing that this stuff maybe actually really happened. So that was a huge weight on my shoulders, I think, that I took on. And I wanted to do as much justice as I could to the performance. And I think that was a big part why I sort of just went all in. Because, at any moment where I was like, oh, I'm tired, I'm hurting, this is a lot, I was just like, remember what story you're telling, and these young innocent men, their lives were taken. And the fact that I sort of get to, embody that situation in this movie, it was a huge responsibility, I think. And it drew me to the movie. I love watching things that are based on true events. But this one, it's based on really brutal, really beautiful, brutal events. So it wasn't easy, obviously. But yeah, it was, and then in the end, that Jake's not going to make it. And the way he goes out, that's what messes me up. And I literally had to, after I saw the film, I literally had to call my mom, and I told her, I was like, you cannot watch the film after I get kidnapped. I was like, you can't. It will disturb you deeply. And I really meant that. I was like, this is not something that a mother should watch. I was like, maybe in 5 to 10 years, but yeah, it's brutal. It's a brutal story. So it's, yeah, it was a lot to take on, but I always kept that in the back of my head, that it was, the story we were telling is so much bigger than the movie. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny, each cast member, the little testimonials that end the movie where they're where Jake is missing and they're interviewing his friends. I didn't know that, but we were starting. Like that's the very first thing I did.
Day one.
That's the first thing
Oh,
Garrett
wow.
did, I think. And it was actually, I mean, I always, actors wish we could go sequential order. It never happens. And I was like, oh my God, we're starting with this. But I kind of loved that to start with, and then just kind of, okay, this is where we end up. And then start with all the other scenes, like knowing where we're going, and to see how deep her relationship was with him, how deep his friendship was with Garrett's character. And really, I mean, I was thinking about that, like someone losing someone. I mean, when we were shooting, we all, me, Garrett, Ronen, we're all living in the same house and just kind of cooking together on the weekends and doing this. And it kind of really helped us bond over the short 2-3 weeks we were there. And so it really did feel like when he was losing it and stuff, it was feeling very real, very tragic. I think Garrett does a great job in the movie of like at the party when he's like, what's with you? When Ronen storms off, it is like kind of heartbreaking because we feel like we're losing him just emotionally. And yeah, it's really kind of devastating how it ends. I think normally like in a scary movie, I feel like the girlfriend dies, but because it's a true story, we're not usually losing the main character like that. So it's very different, very jarring for the audience.
Yeah. I feel like all of you really did that justice and treated it with respect and really kind of shed a light on this, which I don't know if a lot of people know about the myth or the theory, whatever you want to call it. I think it really does, shine a light on that. And I think that is, hopefully something that, people just knowing is half the battle in these cases, and knowing that, there's vulnerabilities even in young college age men. So it's really, I think the film does a fascinating job of exploring that dynamic. So when you all look back on making this movie in and around Las Vegas, do you have any particular thing that you're going to take away, or something that you're really going to hold dear to you from working together on this film when you look back on that whole experience of making it?
Well, it was fast for me, and I didn't really think about it so much until I was there and involved with it. And now that I've seen that, again, the main thing I was concerned about was that it looked okay, and I feel like it was accomplished. So I'm happy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mia.
We had the best time making this movie. I mean, we flew in. I think we had a little thing that first night before we started shooting, and I moved into like a crazy hotel initially, and then I moved into the house with the boys, which was the best thing ever. I mean, it was like instant family. I mean, we all just clicked pretty quickly. We were cooking food, and the place had a pool, so we were having, Ashley and Gianna, the other girls, over for little pool parties on the weekend. And I think we went downtown like once or twice, maybe. I mean, it really was 115 degrees. When we were shooting that party scene, it was like 2 a.m. and 110 degrees. I was like, how is this possible when the sun's not out? But no, it was the best time. It was, I kind of wish all movies were like that, on location, because we were just thrown together. I mean, Vegas is crazy. We went to downtown Vegas, like the old Vegas, and spent a day walking around, and that I'll just remember because it's a very bizarre place. So we were together, and we were, I mean, I feel like it just made the chemistry so much easier. It's different than shooting something here and everyone going back to their separate homes, and we were together, and it was the best time.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that, and it's not a common way to shoot when the entire cast is sort of in the same living space. I think it makes it that much more enjoyable, because once you're done shooting, I remember there's a couple of times where we'd come back to the house and we'd all like nerd out over we're like, holy shit, that scene was awesome, and remember when you did this and you did that, and I really think like that scene worked and it was so much fun. And then, you know, and then everybody goes to sleep and then everybody wakes up and we all travel to work together. It felt like sleepaway camp, you know, but instead of, you know, camp, we were shooting a crazy movie. And you could totally see it on screen, the chemistry. Because, you know, we've never met before, whether it was me or Garrett. And there's just so much happening on screen. And that, you know, it comes from the comfort of being around each other, and then also trust. You know, I think there was a big trust between the three of us. And then the film itself, you know, working with legends like Brett and Tim and Crispin, that's, you know, that doesn't come very often. So I would cherish that forever. And then, you know, the actual material that we were portraying, it's really special and devastating. And I always say it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done, just overall. And I'm so proud of the movie. And I'm excited for the world to finally see it. You know, it's been a long time coming. So it was a good ride for sure.
And the world will be able to see it when it comes out on digital, on demand, Blu-ray and DVD on December 8th from Lionsgate. Of course, at its world premiere at Wicked Weekend and at Popcorn Frights. With that coming out in December, is there anything else coming up for the three of you that you'd like to talk about? Any upcoming projects that you can share with our viewers?
I'm in American Gods. That's continuing. We shot the third season. We'll see what goes on with the fourth, based on Neil Gaiman's beautiful novel of the same name. And then I'm completing a film I've been working on for many years. And now with the pandemic and everything, there's things that continue to slow down. I'm doing post-production right now, but hopefully I'll be announcing that soon.
Sick.
Looking forward to that.
Nothing I can talk about now, but also developing some of my own projects for the first time, which is really, really exciting and something I always wanted to do. So
awesome.
We just started shooting season 2 of 911 Lone Star last week. And we were just officially announced yesterday that we will be premiering in January at 9:00 on Fox.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. Yes, sir.
That is awesome. Well, Mia, Ronen, and Crispin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today about Smiley Face Killers. Thank you to Lionsgate for making this possible. Thank you to the amazing team at Popcorn Frights and everyone out there watching this and helping to support the Florida cinema community, especially in these times. And for enjoying Wicked Weekend from the Popcorn Frights team. So stay safe. Stay kind. Thank you all again, and have a very happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you, guys.
bye, guys. Good to see
Happy
you.
Halloween. See you.
Halloween.